All righty. Welcome to the Russ and Vince Courtside Podcast, where we're here to talk all basketball, not just the Lakers. Unfortunately, our Lakers are no longer going to be playing in the 2025 playoffs, so now it's time to cover some other teams. Right now, it's your boy and your host, Vince, and of course, we got our boy Russ here in the house as well. Russ, how you doing, friend?
Doing good, doing good. I mean, better than I was a couple days ago for sure.
Oh yeah. Definitely a difficult time to be a Laker fan, but you know what? We do have a hopefully promising offseason to look forward to. But nonetheless, unfortunately, the Lakers are gone, and now it's time to talk about some other teams. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about the first round matchup that is no longer happening. It's going to be between the Celtics as well as the Magic. Very quickly, that matchup ended pretty fast. I think a lot of people predicted that the Celtics were going to either sweep them or gentlemen sweep them. And in fact, that is exactly what happened. Arguably, the entire East standings is pretty predictable to say the least. But just focusing primarily on the Celtics matchup with the Orlando Magic. What I want to know from you, Russ, is based off of the matchup that we saw, it did go to 5 games. The Magic did put in a good effort, but unfortunately, they just didn't have the right players to match up with the skill set and the skill level that the Celtics had. What were you able to learn for the most part in that series, both from the Magic's perspective as well as the Celtics' perspective moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, the Magic put up a better fight than I thought they would. The games were somewhat close. It just came down to closing the games, which we kind of expected the Celtics to do. Um, Jason Tatum with that wrist injury in I think game 2 or 3 definitely was a little worrying, but definitely made the rounds. I mean, when Jason Tatum was down with that injury on the floor, people there was a video out that Joe Mazzulla, the coach, was yelling, "Tatum, get up, get up!" and we were all thinking like, man, like he injured, but then like we were thinking about it, like, I mean, yeah, it's a wrist injury. Like, what's he doing on the ground? Your legs are fine. Get up. um, but yeah, so that was a little scary and worrisome for the Celtics, but definitely was like not an issue after, or I don't know. It didn't seem like it. And then Jason Tatum ended up turning that wrist injury into like a celly a celebration every time he made a point or like a three or something like that. Or every once in a while, he would just like hold his wrist. I don't know. It's kind of funny though. But um, Magic were definitely a lot better than I thought they would be. And yeah. So and Jalen Brown, I don't know, man. He ever since he cut his hair from the playoffs, the beginning, I don't know, man. He kind of lost that swagger. Like, I don't know, man. I like them braids, but I don't know. He hasn't been playing as well as I thought he'd be. But and maybe the points don't show it, but I don't know. There's some up. He does have that lingering knee injury too, so I don't know about that. But um, Magic are definitely something to think about in the future. Paulo Banchero is no joke. He's just young, but Celtics got the W, got that win in the series, and it's on to the next. Now they're gonna be facing the Knicks. But how do you feel about it?
Yeah, man, some great points. So, I'll just talk about the Magic first, right? Like you said, I think a lot of us were surprised about the Magic's fighting ability against the Celtics as the 7th seed. To be transparent with you, though, I wasn't as surprised. To be honest with you, in terms of predictions, I actually had assumed that this might go 6 games simply because the Magic has that size. Unlike the Lakers, they have really good. Um, Not just perimeter players, but paint players. Carter, for example, he actually had really good glimpse of potential in terms of what he could do for this team. A couple games, I think he's had a couple double doubles, some really good defensive stops. But what I've really learned about the Magic is very clear. They're probably a couple of pieces away from really being considered like a possible contender. Um, you can't really expect them to go far when it's really just the Palo and the Franz, show for the most part. I do think that this was a really good season in terms of their main cast of players to get some more experience, but you're probably missing a couple of other players. maybe even some veteran players just to kind of tie everything up. Um, Another thing I would like to see in the offseason for the Magic is to go and find some solid scoring ability. One thing that we found out a lot about the Magic this season is defensively, they have a lot of potential. Like I said, with their size, they're really good at stopping people in the paint. Their perimeter defense was really good all season long as well. But one thing that they were lacking a lot this season was offense. I'm pretty sure they were in the bottom two or three teams this season in terms of pace or at least in terms of scoring. So definitely something they want to look forward to in the foreseeable future in the offseason. Go find some scoring, maybe draft a good scorer, and also a shooter. 3-point percentage this season was terrible. Um, Unlike the Lakers, like I said, not to talk about the Lakers, but you know, they had the opposite stuff that the Lakers had. They had this great, like I said, defensive team for the most part, but they didn't really have any shooters. They didn't really have any reliable scorers outside of Paolo and as well as Franz. And it shows in the score sheet. Outside of that, though, too, I did still think it was a decent to good season overall for the Magic, considering the amount of injuries that they had occurred throughout the season. Um, Earlier in the season, I'm pretty sure they were a top 3, top 4 seed, and then unfortunately, Paolo had got hurt. Beg my pardon, most people don't remember that. And when he went hurt, or when he got hurt, that was around the time that their season started to kind of unravel. But what that did do was it unlocked Franz ability to take ownership of his role, being a 1A, 1B, or at least a solid 2. Because outside of Paolo, we didn't really know who was going to be that second person to follow with him. But Franz, I felt like during that time when Paolo was hurt, really solidified himself as that solid second option, and he definitely showed up and showed out a lot in this series. But yeah, outside of that, I thought that the Magic did great. As for the Celtics, I mean, we didn't really learn much. Like the other only thing that we learned is that it doesn't matter how many injury reports that we keep hearing about, they're still the Celtics. They arguably, if not even arguable, have the best starting five in the league, and it's not even close. And the crazy thing about it too is there are so many times in this series alone that they had key players not even play. There was a few, I think a game or two, Drew Holiday didn't play. Obviously, Jason Tatum got hurt in game one, so he didn't even play in game two. They still won that matchup because you have so much quality players around all these star players, and you got Jalen Brown. I know that you said, you thought Jalen Brown's swag was down. Well, I beg to differ. Jalen Brown really showed up and showed out in this series. He had a couple games where he had 23 points, 20 plus, 30 plus points. So he definitely showed up. He was very efficient in scoring, not only around the rim, but in his 3-point shooting as well. And then you also got, timely contribution from your bench players. Obviously, shout out to Peyton Pritchard, who won the Sixth Man of the Year award this season. Um, Overall, man, I mean, like I said, the Celtics are exactly where they would hope to be in the later half of the season. Considering around this time, a lot of people are dealing with knick-knack injuries, as well as trying to get in that rhythm. Although the Celtics didn't finish first in the conference, I don't really think they cared. They just cared more about health. They cared more about that getting through the season to get to the postseason, and they're the defending champs for a reason. You got to put some respect on them. So Celtics, obviously, we know they handled the Magic pretty well, um, and didn't really look back on it. What I want to know a little bit more too, in terms of this this matchup, since we're talking about the Magic as well as the Celtics, what I want to know from you is, was there anything in particular that you maybe didn't like from the Celtics side, since they are the team that is advancing?
What do you want to know from me about the Celtics as they're advancing?
Yeah, so I want to know, like, just watching the games, watching the series. Obviously, I know one of the concerns that you had initially had to do with health, with Jalen Brown, obviously as well with Jason Tatum. Are there any concerns that you have maybe going into this next matchup that the Celtics are going to be having against the Knicks? Now that we know that that is the matchup that's going to be happening.
Well, for one, I mean, Drew Holiday missed a few games in that series too. So, I mean, Drew Holiday, like, I feel like Kristaps Porzingis is the X factor. Uh, um, if he plays well, they definitely are winning. But Drew Holiday, he's definitely a difference too. I would say that the Celtics really just kind of are cruising right now. I don't feel like they're actually trying as hard. I feel like they're just kind of like letting things go. Um, Against the Knicks, though, I feel like it's going to be a tougher matchup than the Magic were, just because the Knicks, man, they're clutch and they can close games, man. I mean, there's not a doubt in my mind that there's a reason why Jalen Brunson won Clutch Player of the Year award. I mean, he clutch when you need a basket. Mans can get you one. So I just think that it's good. I would say at least go 6 games, the Celtics and the Knicks. That's gonna be fun to watch. Um, Horrible if the Knicks go home in the second round, because that's not what their goal is. Obviously, everyone's goal is to get a championship, but um, I would just say that the Celtics is going to win that one. It's a could be a gentleman's sweep, but it could go as far as 6 games. I don't think it would go 7 games just because I think the Celtics definitely have the edge over the Knicks. Um, I mean, the Knicks, they got a good crew. What do you think about the Knicks?
Well, just staying on topic, in terms of the Knicks and the Celtics matchup, I would definitely say I think it's a consensus that everybody believes that in terms of this matchup with the Knicks as well as the Celtics, we would be in a treat if this could at least go to game 6. But for the most part, they got swept in the regular season 4-0. Um, they just for some reason they can never figure it out against the champs. And I would be surprised to see if it got to a game 6 or a game 7 and the Knicks got on top. Now, would I love that? Of course I would love that. I am a Laker fan, but at the same time I'm realistic. There's not a chance that the Knicks are going to be going to at least a game 7. I almost am willing to bet on that. What I will say though that I would hope to see is, like I said, a certain level of competition between both the Celtics and the Knicks. Um, Getting swept, getting gentlemen swept, that's just not good enough. That's not really something as a Knicks fan you can really hang your hat on into the offseason. Just knowing that you guys made all these changes, gave up all these draft picks in the previous offseason to get Mikal Bridges, to get Karl Anthony Towns. You guys managed to lock in the 3 seed. And as you're locking in that 3 seed, you're basically getting to a point where, you know, there's only so far you can go, to the point where now you're just kind of still drawing in the drawing board. Like, what else do we go? What else do we do to even match up with the Celtics? It's almost gotten to a point now where you're almost wondering and hoping that the news around the league right now is that the Celtics might have to get rid of some of these players because they're well over the luxury tax. There's not a ability for them to be able to afford all these players after the season. So you don't want to be the Knicks in that situation where you're like just hoping and praying that the only way that you can catch up with this team, which will of course be the Celtics, would be in order for them to have to literally lose some of the players that are whooping that tail. Um, but like I said, man, I think that this is going to be a really good matchup. As far as the Celtics go, like you said, I mean, it's almost like in practice. And an interesting stat to think about, Russ, the Celtics in the past season plus this season have been 20-4. That means that nobody has even managed to challenge them to a game 6. That is dominance. That's to the point where we might have to really look in about this team and see how good is this team really. Especially if they manage to win a championship again this season, you might have to start looking at a potential dynasty, just like the Warriors. So it is something very interesting to think about. But the fact that this team has gone 20-4 since the beginning of last season is insane. And it kind of makes you wonder about really what do we have to look forward to in the East? It seems like outside of the West, there's not really much to enjoy as far as these playoffs because the East has been so predictable, man. The top 4 seeds advancing compared to the West, outside of the Thunder, you really don't know what you're going to get. So, I mean, like I said, man, the East it's starting to ravel up into pure form. Um, but as far as that matchup, what I want to know from you, what do you think it's going to take for the Knicks to be able to get to a point where they're able to get over that hump. If the Knicks are able to take the Celtics to a game 6, to a game 7, you'd have to assume, because you don't predict that the Celtics are only going to win a game or two. What do you think is going to take for the Knicks in this case to be able to actually have a realistic chance to beat the Celtics?
Carl Anthony Towns definitely has to show up and play some really good basketball. I mean, Jalen Brunson, we know what he's going to give you, but if Carl Anthony Towns ain't giving you the scoring, because I mean, he's not really known to be a defensive player, but he's a tall guy. He should be able to deter some shots from going in the basket. But yeah, I think that Carl Anthony Towns has to be the guy. He has to be the second best guy on the team. Um, and believe it or not, I mean, he can be the first scoring option if you really were to try hard enough. But I swear that man, he just he a little goofy. But I mean, you still got Josh Hart, who's also like a hustler, man. He's out there. He's basically our Vando of the Lakers, and he's just running out there. He's actually doing things, but he's just everywhere on the court. Um, the Knicks, as long as Tom Thibodeau doesn't play his players so much that he tires them out, which Tom Thibodeau is known for, then I think the Knicks have a, somewhat of a chance. But you're right. There was that thing where the Knicks just could not beat any team that was like a top 4 team in either conference. So that's kind of an issue. I mean, if you can't beat the top teams, which they beat the Pistons and they were, I believe, 5th, so which isn't top 4, but the Pistons ain't exactly someone who I'd be worried about either. So I think the Knicks, I guess maybe I have to backtrack a little bit. Maybe the Knicks get swept against the Celtics, but with Jalen Brunson's like grit and grind and hustle and effort, man, it's just I don't see them winning. I don't see them not winning at least one game, if not 2. If they win 2, it's at least going 6 games. But I just think the Celtics will definitely pick them apart. I mean, that's my take, but
No,
I'll let you say this out and then we'll close it out.
yeah, yeah, of course. Um, yeah, no, I definitely agree with you, man. To some capacity, the way that I look at it is, I honestly felt like the Detroit Pistons really kind of was a good start for the Knicks. You look at some of these matchups, like warm ups when it comes to the East. I feel like the Knicks and the Pistons was everything that we hoped to see. That was probably the most exciting matchup in the East, all playoffs, that we had the privilege of seeing, because all the other matchups were pretty predictable. The Cavs sweeping the Heat, and then obviously, like I said, the Celtics, gentlemen sweeping against the Magic, and then you got the Pacers, gentlemen sweeping the Bucks, which wasn't as predictable for sure, but unfortunately, you knew because Dame wasn't healthy, ended up tearing his ACL, and then just a terrible, terrible game 5 in the fourth quarter. I mean, you feel bad for Giannis, but at the same time, it's almost predictable when you got a coach like Doc Rivers. No offense, but it is what it is. But yeah, as far as the Knicks, I think what really it's gonna take for them, in order for them to really give themselves an honest chance, is they gotta take what they learned from that matchup against Detroit and apply it against the Celtics. One thing that we saw in a lot of these games against the Celtics, this regular season at least, was they were kind of soft. Like, I know Knick fans don't like that word. New Yorkers don't like that word, but let's just keep it a stack. Earlier in the season, especially, they were still trying to figure out themselves. Obviously, they just acquired Karl Anthony Towns. They just acquired Mikal Bridges, and they're trying to find their roles. They're trying to find their footings. The first game of the season was against the Celtics. They played terrible, primarily Mikal Bridges. Since then, you could see that there's a level of confidence that this team has now that they didn't have before, and you want to ride that confidence as well. Not to mention, you have Mr. Clutch as your leader, Jalen Brunson. One could argue Jalen Brunson is going to get you at least one win alone on his own, right? So now it's just going to matter about the others. We need to see who's going to emerge as the others that are going to step up to the plate, not only defensively, but offensively at times that they're going to need scoring. The Knicks actually had a really good season offensively this year and took a backtrack defensively this year compared to last season because of those trades that they made. So what I want to see from the Knicks in order for them to advance into the conference finals this season is I want to see them, like I said, take what they learned from that matchup against the Pistons, meaning they need to come in ready to get rough. I'm not saying you got to hurt anybody. I'm not saying you got to play dirty. I'm not saying you got to injure anybody. But what I am saying is you got to play like New Yorkers want you to play. That means you got to have that grit and grind. That means you got to show up and show out, especially on the home court. You don't have home court advantage in this series. So obviously you're going to have to really try to at least go get game one or game two. If you get game one or game two, you tie it up 1-1, you go back to New York. Next thing you know, you're playing in game three in your home court. The fans you have to expect are going to carry as best as they can. If you can manage to at least be tied going back to New York, one could argue New York could still that game three just for the momentum alone. But I want to see them be rough. I want to see them show that grit and that grind and that toughness, just like we were able to see in this matchup against the Detroit Pistons. If they do that, with a little bit of luck, I think they got a solid chance to, come out on top against the Celtics. But with that being said, that's going to conclude the rest of this video. We greatly appreciate the time, the effort, and the energy for you guys taking the moment to watch this video. We're trying out some new stuff, me hosting this time while our boy Rue is out there working on his real estate stuff. Salute to you, my guy. But outside of that, bro, like I said, if you enjoy the video, hit a like, comment your opinion down below. Do you think the Knicks are going to have a better chance than what we're giving them so far? Do you think that the Knicks are coming up top, game 5, game 6, game 7? Or do you think this is not going to be competitive at all? Do you think the Celtics are just going to sweep them, gentlemen sweep them? Basically, it's just going to be like the matchup against the Magic. It might be a little bit competitive, but not really anything to really care about for the most part. Other than that, like I said, we appreciate you guys' support. And other than that, man, salute.
Salute.